Let us have a drink. So if I start this video, it may sound a little unethical, but this may have some historical basis, and that is what we are going to analyze in this video. And we are going to make it as a new segment, history made fun, because people think that history is just about dates, numbers, places, kings, and these facts are not very important is what people think. But these facts have a significance, these facts have a meaning, these facts have a story, and these stories are connected to our present. Our past will always be connected to our present, and it will be useful for our future. And that is why we are going to see these historical anecdotes, which may be interesting, fun. And so first thing that we are going to see is what is the meaning of this let us have a drink, and let us go into the video to learn more about this. So let us have a drink. So this statement you might have asked your friends, or your friends might have asked you, or you might have seen these things in the movies. But if you think about it, there might be some historical understanding to this statement. And if you go back a little bit, not very long, if you go back 20 million years ago, there were an evolution of new species or new kind of line from the monkeys. That is, earlier there were old world monkeys in Africa, which are the monkeys that you see right now in India and Asia. From that came what is called as the apes. These apes are nothing but we are the apes which you see every day. But if you think about it, this evolution happened because of some climatic changes which happened in Africa. Because prior to that, these old world monkeys were very much content with what the food was available at that time, because Africa is covered by a lot of, or was covered by a lot of trees at that time, and hence they had this abundant supply of fruits, and hence they were happy. But what happened is, what happens in life, in most of the time in our lives also, everything would be going very smoothly, and suddenly some problem would come and everything starts shattering. And similarly, the same thing happened for these monkeys in Africa, which were happily eating their fruits at that time. But a climate change happened, and Africa turned into what it is today, right now. Like, for example, the Sahara is a desert, and hence when in terms of places like that, Sahara and savanna type of climate, you might not find abundant trees at that time. And abundant trees, if it is not there, you will not have fruits. And hence what happened was that these monkeys which were there, they had to evolve themselves into something called as the apes, which is what I said that we are right now. And in school, you might have heard so many times, or I have heard so many times, that tailless monkey, you are a tailless monkey. It is a true fact. It is a true fact that we are absolutely tailless monkey, and these apes were the first organisms which came about, which were thinking about moving in a different direction than the monkeys which were earlier present. And they had a lot of names: Keniapithecus, Afropithecus, Proconsul, Dryopithecus. This Proconsul and Dryopithecus is in the syllabus of anthropology paper 1. And if you think about it, these apes did not have tails, and this is what was the start of a very big change in the evolution. But slowly, as I said, these apes were present, but they were not able to get much fruit or much food in Africa, as it turned into kind of a desert in the due to the climatic change. And hence they moved slowly to what was a Mediterranean climate, or the near that if you think about it, if you move northward from Africa, you will have the Mediterranean, and there the trees were there the fruits were there. But again, one more problem was, these Mediterranean region, if you think about it, it is above the equator. It is going towards the temperate region, and hence the sun may not be available all the year round, and hence they will have a cycle of flowering and fruits. And the cycle of flowering and fruits results in fruits being ripe at one time. Ripe fruits, if you think about it, are nothing but fermented fruits, and this fermentation is the logic which happens in every drink that you have, or the things that we spoke about. Let us have a drink. That means they are asking, let us have a fermented drink. That is the point. And this taste, Why does it stick to us? Means because the apes, our ancestors, the tailless monkeys which were present at that time, had a feast of all these things. But again, if you think about it, earlier the monkeys were not able to digest all these fermented fruits, and they were not able to make it as energy. But genetic mutation happens, and these apes get this ability to digest these ripe fruits and are able to make it into a fat, and are able to store it. As I said, the climatic changes, or climate happens to be in a seesaw like fashion in the Mediterranean or temperate regions. You will have cold and you will have hot, and during the cold season you will not get much of food, and hence these ripe fruits, they helped in the storage of fat and giving of energy to these animals and their survival. And hence that is why we have this gene of digesting these fermented fruits, and or this drink which is also a fermented drink. But if you think about it, I have not talked about why this let us have a drink especially came about. And you can ask me the meaning of all these things is that, see, everything has an anthropological or biological basis, or a historical basis comes through this biological basis. And hence now we will go to the next part, which is the historical part of this term which has come. And if you think about it, Europe was a place where there was a Silk Route which was present, or Europe was having a trade with India and Asia, or India or Asia and China through the Silk Route. And that modern Silk Route is what China is aiming to play right now. But this Silk Route was stopped because of an conquering of Turkey by Ottoman Empire, or Turkey, not Turkey and West Asia, by Ottoman Empire. And this Turkey is the junction between Europe and Asia, and hence there has been already a question in preliminary examination about this Turkey, how it borders which sea. And this was an important question, 2015 or 14, you can check that question as well. But Turkey is a very important place, and Ottoman Empire capturing that place resulted in the stoppage of goods flowing from Europe to Asia, or Asia to Europe. And hence the Europeans had to find a different route, and that is why they had these expeditions which went into different directions for finding trade routes to India and Asia. And that is why Columbus started. But at that time, if you think about it, the people in Europe did not have an idea about a continent called as America. They were not aware at all. But what they thought was, if they move towards the Atlantic and they make a round trip, they will be able to come to Japan, or China, or the Indian continent, Indian subcontinent. But what happened ultimately was they smashed into the American continent, and they understood that there was a huge continent which was undiscovered, or this was a promised land for them. And that is why Obama has written a book also. If you think about it, USA is called as the promised land. What is the promised land means? It was a land where people from Europe, they migrated for a better life, a free life, a life with liberty. And that is why you will find that this freedom, liberty, pursuit of happiness, all these are important tenets of American Constitution. And now coming back to this concept of why this let us have a drink came about. People, they moved to USA, and they occupied this eastern seaboard. So when people move to another country, they will get a climate which is very equivalent to the climate in which they survived. And hence Europe, they had this temperate climate, and they wanted to be in the eastern seaboard nearer to the sea, so that they will feel less heat. And hence if you see New York, Washington, Georgia, Florida, all these places were colonized. But once they moved inside, so once they went into the eastern seaboard, they wanted to move inside the continent. Inside the continent, USA is a very large continent, and it's a very it's an unexplored continent. Anything which is unexplored can result in a lot of problems to you, and hence you have to have a understanding of the place. And the understanding of the place comes from the indigenous population, and that is why this protection of indigenous population is a very important concept even in Indian constitution. But this protection of indigenous population, what happened was USA, or the people who colonized the eastern seaboard, and the indigenous population had a lot of tussle, and there was a problem between them, and they started there were a lot of wars between them for occupation of land or restoration of land by the indigenous population. But what ultimately was the consequence was the knowledge of the continent was lost to the indigenous population. These colonized people, or people who colonized, did not have the knowledge of the continent, and hence they were not able to get the water sources present in the continent. Water source is part of the indigenous knowledge, and which water source is important for drinking is a very important thing, because what happened was people when they moved it to the west, they got very sick drinking a lot of toxic or pathogen infested lakes, and hence what happened, there was a lot of deaths in the colonized people. But that is why they thought about fermenting the water, or fermenting a drink, or having a drink which was fermented. They had this water, but they usually went and they made sure that if somebody is coming to their house, they did not have a toxic or pathogen infested water given to them. Rather, they gave them this what is called as this fermented drink, which was safer. So if anyone goes to your house and they die, means it is a very bad omen for any place. And hence what they decided was, if somebody is going to come to my house, they will give, or they will be getting what is called as the fermented drink, so that they will not die. And that is how this habit of let us have a drink came about. This let us have, and that is why in USA you will have this concept in movies you would have seen. They will have let us have a drink, like the thing that we have in our house. When somebody comes to our house, we will give them water. That is the same idea that USA has, which is called as giving a fermented drink, or let us have a drink. That is how it came about. But as our government strictly says, this drinking is not a very good habit, as is portrayed in movies. But this concept of fermentation or usage was an evolutionary adaptation that we have. But now what we do is abuse of that adaptation. Those adaptation was for our survival. It was not for our destruction. What we do right now using these drinks is destruction, and hence we have to think about it, and we have to be very responsible and understand that if somebody says let us have a drink, it is about being safe, or being a person who can share things with each other in a safe environment, and it is not about the drink especially. So thank you for watching this video. So if you like this video, please do like it, share it, and subscribe to Minds of Aspirant channel. And also there is a link to Telegram group, which is if you want to ask your doubts for anthropology, there is an anthropology Telegram group. There is a general UPSC Telegram group as well. You can look into the links and you can click it, and you can just ask your doubts in the groups, and I will be more than willing to answer your questions. Thank you for watching this video. Have a good night.